So Trump thought he had NATO figured out. He thought if he yelled loudly enough, insulted Europe enough, threatened Canada enough, and demanded that allies spend more on defense, that all that new money would just flow straight into American factories.
Lockheed Martin, Boeing, RTX, Northrop Grumman, General Dynamics, the usual buffet line of weaponry.
Exactly, because for decades, that was just the arrangement. Canada and Europe bought a lot of American equipment. Fighter jets, missiles, surveillance systems, software, upgrades, you name it. And once you buy the equipment, you don't just buy the thing, you buy the relationship.
Which sounds fine until the relationship starts acting like a landlord with a grudge and a key to your front door.
And now, Canada and Europe are asking the question that Washington really doesn't want them asking. Why should our defense dollars automatically become American jobs and go in American pockets?
And that is the real story here. Not just NATO spending, not just burden sharing, not just Trump banging the table and pretending NATO is one of his unpaid contractor invoices. The real story is that Trump demanded more defense spending, and Canada and Europe said, fine, we'll spend more, but we're not necessarily spending it with you.
And that's where the whole thing backfires. So, let's get into it.
First, let's talk about the facts. NATO says European allies and Canada increased defense spending by 20% compared with 2024, and NATO allies agreed to raise defense investment towards 5% of GDP. So the money is moving. And the old American complaint that allies are not paying enough is getting weaker by the day.
But now comes the part that Washington didn't plan for. Once Canada and Europe start spending more, the debate changes from, why are you not paying, to, where's that money going?
And the question is making Washington very nervous because the United States has been very open about what it wants. Trump signed an America First arms transfer strategy that says foreign defense sales should support American interests, American industry, and American production capacity.
In other words, Washington wants NATO allies to carry more of the military burden while still sending their checks to the U.S. and Trump.
You heard that right. More European spending, more Canadian spending, more American contracts and American factories, and more American jobs. That has been the hidden bargain under all that NATO guilt-tripping for years.
Yeah, and Trump is anything but subtle about it. This is a man who looks at alliances and sees money, 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 money. That's all he cares about.
But now there's another layer, one he didn't expect, because allies are not just looking at American equipment anymore. They are looking at the American system behind it. And the system is starting to look very expensive, very political, and very corrupt.
ProPublica reported that a company tied to Donald Trump Jr. received a $620 million Pentagon loan after White House intervention. Trump Jr.'s venture capital firm has taken a stake in Vulcan Elements about 3 months before the Pentagon announced the loan. The company and Trump Jr.'s representatives, well, they deny any wrongdoing, but hey, lawmakers, they're now demanding answers. Rightfully so.
Yeah, and this is not some small favor. This is hundreds of millions of dollars tied to the Pentagon, and it lands in the middle of a presidency where the Trump family business interests keep appearing right beside the government power.
And this is where the defense money story gets even uglier. Because it's not just the old defense giants making money from instability anymore. It's also politically connected startups, drone companies, crypto money, and prediction markets turning war into a revenue system.
And that last one is something that should make everyone sit up and take notice.
Yeah, we have to talk about the war betting markets. News reports have raised concerns about prediction markets where people place wagers on whether military action, ceasefires, strikes, or escalations will actually happen. And some of those markets have been tied to companies backed or advised by Donald Trump Jr. Surprise, surprise.
So, while ordinary people worry about oil prices, inflation, military escalation, and whether this spreads into something bigger, other people are betting on the timing of war. And that is the sickness of it all. War becomes content. War becomes a stock move. War becomes a betting line. war becomes a contract opportunity.
It is disgusting. It really is. Reuters reported that defense executives were planning to meet at the White House after strikes on Iran depleted weapons stockpiles. That is the war economy in one sentence. Bombs are used, missiles stockpiles drop, and suddenly the same companies that build the weapons are lining up for that next wave of contracts.
And when you look at the Trump family orbit, PBS reported that a company backed by Trump's sons was looking to sell drone interceptors to the Gulf states being attacked by Iran, while also watching Pentagon money aimed at expanding American drone manufacturing.
So let me get this straight. The president's family is near the drone business, while the president's foreign policy is creating more drone demand.
And Al Jazeera reported that Eric Trump invested in Israeli drone maker Extend, a company with U.S. defense contracts and ambitions for more. So this is not normal politics, and this is not public service. This is a family business model parked right beside the Pentagon.
And then, what does Trump do? Well, he turns around and tells Canada and Europe that they need to spend more on defense, which is why Canada and Europe have every right to ask, spend more into what system and with who?
Yeah. Are we strengthening our own security, or are we feeding a machine where the president's family, donors, friends, defense executives, drone companies, and market gamblers all seem to find a way to profit from the chaos?
Because Canada and Europe are not just trying to buy equipment here. Now we're trying to escape dependence on a system that looks more compromised by the day. And there's a name for that system. It's called the military-industrial complex.
Now, that phrase was made famous by President Dwight Eisenhower in 1961. And he was not some anti-war hippie yelling from the sidelines. He was a 5-star general, supreme Allied commander in Europe, and President of the United States.
And his warning was simple. When defense contractors, politicians, and the military become too closely tied together, then they can develop a vested interest in keeping the threat level high and the contracts flowing. So in other words, war becomes business. And that is why this NATO spending debate is not just about security anymore. It's about who profits from fear, because that is what's happening here.
When Trump says NATO allies need to spend more, Canada and Europe are not just hearing a security lecture. They are hearing a sales pitch from a government where the president's family keeps standing suspiciously close to the cash register.
And that changes the entire conversation, as it should. Because if your defense dollars are flowing into a country reliant on the military-industrial complex, run by a president whose family and allies keep finding ways to profit near government power, well, that becomes an issue, and a big one.
It's always been like this in America, but we all know that right now, we're not living in normal times. It's worse. Trump has threatened allies, attacked Canada, mused about taking Greenland, treated NATO like a protection racket, and turned trade into a weapon. So when Canada buys defense equipment from the United States now, the question isn't just, does it work?
The question is, can they use it against us layered? That is the reality right here. Can they delay parts? Can they block upgrades? Can they turn software maintenance or delivery schedules into leverage? Can they make Canadian sovereignty depend on the political mood in Washington? That's scary.
And nobody wants to send billions of dollars on a fighter jet or any other military equipment, only to find out that it comes with strings attached to the American chaos.
NATO means allies need compatible systems. It means they need to work together. But it does not mean that every single dollar has to end up in an American defense contractor's quarterly report.
And now Canada is moving in that same direction.
Yeah, we're taking a new position. Defense spending as sovereignty, not defense spending as tribute. And Europe, they're doing the exact same thing.
The EU SAFE program is a defense procurement tool worth up to 150 billion euros. It's designed to help countries boost defense investment through common procurement. And Canada is the first non-European country approved to participate.
Which is a very polite Canadian way of saying, we're not putting all our eggs in the American basket anymore, because the American basket keeps threatening to tariff the eggs and then invoice us for the basket. God, it's insane.
Yes, it is. And there is another piece of breaking news that fits perfectly into this shift, Dave. Canada is in discussion to join the NATO Innovation Fund. The fund is not about buying yesterday's weapons from yesterday's contractors. It's a venture capital fund for the next generation of defense and security technology.
So instead of just writing giant checks to the same American defense giants, this is about funding startups in robotics, space technology, advanced materials, cybersecurity, Arctic technology, the systems that will shape the next 20 years of defense, not just the last 20.
And Canada has been sitting outside this fund for years, which was ridiculous. Canada signed off on creating the fund, set aside money to participate in the fund, and then never actually joined.
Very Canadian, right? Oh, sorry. Are we allowed to invest in our own future?
But now that appears to be changing, Dave, because this is the part that Trump didn't understand or anticipate. He thought more NATO spending meant more money for America. But Canada and Europe heard something different. Build your own power.
Yeah, Canada and Europe are saying yes. We do need to spend more money on defense. The world is more dangerous, Russia's still a threat, China's rising, and the Arctic is opening. And heck, cyber attacks are increasing, and the drones, they're changing the battlefield. Nobody serious is saying that we can ignore defense in today's day and age.
But the part where all that money flows back to the United States, that is over. Or at least it's being challenged in a serious way for the first time in years. And that is why Trump's approach is such a strategic failure. He thought pressure would force dependence. Instead, it's creating independence. He thought NATO spending would become American revenue. Well, it didn't.
No, instead, it's becoming Canadian jobs, European production, Swedish aircraft, joint procurement, and a defense economy that doesn't need permission from Washington every time the White House has a political meltdown, which seems to be almost every week now. The bottom line here is the trust in the U.S. is gone. So here's our question for you today. Should Canada keep buying major defense equipment from the United States, or should we shift more of that money toward Canadian and European companies?
Drop your thoughts in the comments below because this one is bigger than any fighter jet. This is about sovereignty, jobs, trust, and who gets to control Canada's future.
And if you're as tired as we are of watching Trump turn every alliance into a shakedown, hit subscribe, give this a hike, give it a like, and join us here. We're following how Canada, Europe, and other democracies are building a future that doesn't depend on the chaos from down south.
Check out the pinned comment for the links to Substack, our merch store, and Facebook, and we shall see you tomorrow, everyone.
Thanks for watching. Ciao for now.